Well, I just did a segment talking about Bernie Sanders' good friend Linda Sarsour, who they stand together. And now we can see another completely absurd and insane policy proposal from the Democrats. Bernie Sanders has lost it as far as I'm concerned. He used to talk about border security. He used to talk about ending free trade agreements. Now what is he doing? Calling for a complete ban on deportations. That's right. Because apparently it's only a right-wing talking point when people say the Democrats are pushing open borders. Well, let me make this clear. When you have Castro saying we should decriminalize border crossings. You have Beto O'Rourke saying tear down the walls. I kid you not. Beto O'Rourke was actually talking about getting rid of border walls. And then Bernie Sanders saying don't deport anybody. What do you think you're proposing? Well, the left comes back and says there's still going to be civil penalties. You don't have an ID. You can't vote. It's not open borders. And there it is. They want a serf class. People to do the jobs they don't want to do. They want people who can't vote, who won't have IDs, who are constantly living in fear. They want to live above them. Well, they may not say it, but that's what they're advocating for. Because again, they're saying, come in, we won't deport you, it's not a crime, but you can't get a job, you can't vote. So what do you think that creates? A two-tiered system. Second-class citizens. That's what they're proposing. They are one-upping each other. Bernie Sanders used to talk about secure borders, no free trade agreements, and now he's saying no deportations. He's saying that to one-up Castro. Kid you not. Castro goes, well, it should be a criminal offense. So Bernie goes, we shouldn't deport anybody at all. And they're going to race to the bottom. One-upping each other until their policies are so absolutely twisted and insane, the average American just doesn't understand what they're looking at anymore. Who's going to vote for this? They're going to give free healthcare, government healthcare, I shouldn't call it free, government healthcare funded by you to people who aren't from this country, who come here without criminal penalty, and then they refuse to deport them? That's insane. They're crossing the line, man. Let's read the story before we get started. Head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address, but the best thing you can do is share this video because you know what? I'm just so contrarian, aren't I? I speak out against the mainstream narrative for the most part. You got YouTube propping up CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and independent channels like mine are being knocked down. So you know what they can't derank? Your willingness to share the content if it's good. No matter how much they might say we're not going to show your videos to anybody, Tim, if you guys choose to share it because you like it, it kind of breaks that barrier. At least for the time being, it's a solution. So if you do like it, please consider sharing. Let's read on. The Daily Caller reports, while speaking before a left-wing Latino audience, Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders pledged to end immigration raids and impose a moratorium on all deportations. We are going to end the ICE raids that are terrorizing communities all over this country. Communities, I might add, that are not comprised of American citizens to a certain degree. Now, with that being said, when ICE searches people's homes without a warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and they have detained American citizens, that is wrong. It needs to be pointed out. It needs to be called out. That doesn't mean we abolish ICE. That doesn't mean we stop law enforcement. It means we address the problems and say we need scrutiny on these groups. Good. And that's it. Continue to do what you're supposed to do. They want to abolish ICE. They're not saying get rid of the law enforcement agency. They're saying no deportations, open borders. You see how this works? If they simultaneously want a path to citizenship, no criminal action against someone illegally entering, and no deportation, what do you think happens? They enter into this country, no one stops them, no one deports them, and then they're offered up a ticket to citizenship. That is open borders with extra steps. He says, we are going to impose a moratorium on deportations, and we are going to, as I mentioned, and there are some things that a president can do with executive orders and some things you can't. Sanders was speaking at an event organized by Mi Gente, a progressive Latino group that focuses on immigration issues in the U.S. Mi Gente describes itself not just as a movement for Latinos, but also a pro-black, pro-women, pro-queer, pro-poor group that actively promotes anti-ICE activities. In other parts of his discussion, the Vermont senator said he would also provide illegal aliens with government-funded health care and a free college education. Well, there it is. Who's going to pay for it? You know what, man? I think it's hilarious when you have liberals not paying attention to this. You live in your home in the suburbs. I got a neighbor who's fairly moderate, leaning towards progressive, and I don't think he knows at all about this. I don't think he pays attention. He doesn't listen to these speeches. But I would like to ask someone like that, what do you do when your taxes go up to provide healthcare to people who aren't citizens? Now think about this. You pay your healthcare bills. Bernie Sanders recently tweeted, What's the most absurd healthcare bill you've ever received? I had $16,000 in fees because I got a kidney stone once. I went to the hospital with severe pain. They ran tests, sent me home. Pain got worse. I went back. Then they ran a bunch of tests. Couldn't figure it out until finally they said, kidney stone. Here's a prescription for some drugs. You can go home now. There's nothing we can do. Took a bunch of pills. Wonderful pills, I might add. But I will stress this too. Talk about the opioid crisis. I can't remember what exactly they gave me, but I can truly understand why people become addicted to it. Now, for me, I just stopped taking it. I said, if the pain is as bad as it's going to be, and these things are addictive, I'm going to use them. I'm going to break them in half. I'm going to use them, sparingly, essentially. Take them in slower, spaced out doses to try and avoid any negative ramifications. But in the end, I just didn't really take them. And eventually, I got a bill in the mail, $16,000. When I hear that, I think Bernie has a point about this. I went in for a day. They didn't know what was going on, and they didn't do anything for me. I understand I used their time and their resources and their machines, and I understand that it could have been appendicitis. So it makes sense. But we do have a problem in that, how is the average person supposed to pay for that? For me, I was between jobs and I didn't have insurance. So Bernie brings up interesting points. The question then is, if someone like me has to pay $16,000, so let me get to the point and bring this back together. I'd like to go to my neighbor and ask them, you've got a hospital bill, right? It's been really expensive. What if I told you that you're going to have that bill, you're going to pay that bill, and the government is going to come and take more money away from you to give to non-citizens who they won't deport, they will give a path to citizenship to. They're going to be like, wait, that math doesn't add up. Eventually, more and more people will come for the healthcare benefits. And guess who's paying for it? People don't seem to understand. When I talk to the left, they seem to think money is something. Like they think money is a thing. You know what I mean? Like, let me try and explain this. Money doesn't get you anything. Value does. The value of a dollar changes. You have a universal trade medium called money. The real issue is, what can you trade in exchange for the labor provided by the hospitals? So if you bring in 100,000 people per month, which is about what we're doing, and they're all getting healthcare but providing nothing to the system, it collapses. Resources and time are finite. I'm preaching to the choir, though. They say, Sanders reiterated his position on deportations the following day on Twitter. We must treat undocumented people with dignity. When we are in the White House, we will end the ICE raids that are terrorizing communities all across the country and impose a moratorium on deportations. Though Sanders has long espoused far-left immigration views, a senior policy advisor for his campaign confirmed to CNN that the comment on deportations is in fact a new position adopted by the Democratic Socialist. Such a position likely pivots him further to the left of fellow presidential candidate Julian Castro. You see, that's the point. He's one-upping Castro because he wants the vote. They are desperate, slimy individuals. I will spare no expense for the Republicans when it's their time in the primaries. When they start playing the same game, okay? This isn't about tribe, and it comes and goes in waves. I remember during Occupy Wall Street, I was saying things like, hey, cops shouldn't be whacking those protesters, and I had conservatives on the right being like, oh, they're a bunch of hippy-dippy losers, get out of the street. I defended their free speech. We're now at a point where Trump's in office, and the media is relentless, and the Democrats are chasing each other off a cliff, and I'm calling them out, and they're saying, why won't you talk about Republicans, Tim? Because Republicans aren't running. The incumbent is Trump. He's going to run. I have no problem when the Republicans are lined up talking about their nonsense. I have no problem talking about it. For the time being, if Bernie is going to one-up Castro with insane policy, and that's where we're headed, I'm going to call it out. There's no middle. There's no center. There's no rationality. You've got Trump. Admittedly, according to the New York Times, Trump is slightly to the left of Romney. Not my opinion. New York Times showing the chart. Okay, I don't know what you want from me if the New York Times is going to say that. That's actually my next story, okay? They love claiming that there's this like alternative, independent, or conservative media driving a narrative, and they ignore the fact that oftentimes, like CNN is wrong because the New York Times calls them out and proves it. Or they were wrong because their story was wrong. So that's the game we play. You know what? A number of Democrats have come forward to warn that the current crop of potential presidential candidates are becoming too extreme on immigration issues, on everything, man. I'm a Democrat. I'm a loyal Democrat. I want us to see us win 2020. But to do that, we've got to appeal to a wide, the consensus out there to a wide, I don't know what they're trying to say, on immigration and other issues. This is from Obama's former DHS secretary. He says, Johnson said border decriminalization was way too far to the left than what most Americans want. You know what, man? If you're somebody who's watching this happen and you still want to vote for these people, you deserve, you vote for it, you get it, you deserve it. If you're someone not paying attention, then you also, to an extent, deserve it. There are a lot of people I know who would probably, their jaws would drop if they heard Bernie was proposing this. Because it's getting extreme. I got one more segment coming up in a few minutes. Stick around. I will see you shortly.